Hello and welcome to a very special Ask Rob and Rob. For hundreds of episodes, we've done exactly the same thing. Today, Rob, something a bit different because there is an entirely different way that people can get their questions answered.
Yeah, after all these years, Rob, we thought we'd mix it up a bit. But we are mixing it up in the best way because on Sunday, we appeared in the Sunday Times answering your property questions. So we thought, what better way to celebrate this than actually read the questions that appeared in the Sunday Times in case you missed it. And of course, let you know that now we'll be answering your questions in more than one way. So if you want to appear on the podcast, you can go to propertyhub.net/ask as always. But if you'd like to see your question in print in the Sunday Times, no less, then you email your question into hello@propertyhub.net. So that's hello@propertyhub.net. Send us your questions in and we will pick the very best of those and answer them in the Sunday Times each and every week. Remember to give us your name and your details and where you're from so we can name check you in the Sunday Times. So without further ado, let's get into those questions that appeared in the Times on Sunday.
Okay, the first question was, I've had the same tenants in my property for 3 years and I never increased the rent. Now, my mortgage costs are going up. I want to ask for more, but how much? Any tips for how to approach the conversation?
Great question. Okay, your costs shouldn't have any bearing on the level of rent you charge. Local market dynamics set the level of rent you can achieve. And there's no reason tenants should pay more for that just because your costs have increased. After all, you're unlikely to reduce the rent if your costs fell. However, if you haven't changed the rent for 3 years, it's highly likely that local rents have increased. So you could justify asking for more. Start by looking at local properties similar to yours and be realistic about the quality and location to establish the level of rent you'd be able to charge a new tenant today. Then, our approach is to propose an increase that ends up below the level, rewarding the tenant for looking after the property and, selfishly, making it less likely that they'll leave because they're still getting a good deal. If you propose it sensitively and use the market rather than your costs as justification, you should be able to come to an agreement. You could even give a few months' notice or stage it over time.
Okay, that was the first question, but there was another. So, Rob, would you like to read this one out?
Of course. Okay, the next question is, I have the deposit saved to buy an investment property, but with all the talk of recession, should I wait until the recession hits and buy when prices are lower?
We've had lots of variations of this question into the Ask Rob and Rob voicemail. Here's how we answered this one. Property price predictions are almost always wrong, often dramatically so, with one of the most prominent forecasters saying prices would fall by 4% in 2021 when they actually increased by more than 10%. Through Brexit and then COVID, house prices were widely expected to drop, but didn't. Recessions also aren't correlated to falling house prices to the extent you'd expect. That's not to say that prices won't fall, just that timing the market is much harder than it seems, and the most successful investors we know just stick to their plan without trying to guess what'll happen in the next year. If you do decide to be active in the market now, what you can do is make sure you get a great deal. No one's listing their property now unless they really need to sell, so you can drive a hard bargain, which will also give you protection if values do fall.
Alrighty, so our next question was on mortgages. Rob, do you want to take this?
Yep, so here's the question. Have I done the right thing by asking to fix my buy-to-let mortgage? My current deal is ending in January 2023, and I've been offered 5.3% fixed for 5 years, which is up from 1.7% in my current deal. Should I accept this offer, or could mortgage rates come down?
Okay, so mortgage questions, again, are very popular at the moment. So this is how we answered this question. In general, fixed rates have become unattractive over the last couple of months. This is because fixed rates are based on the market's expectations of future interest rates, which spiked after the disastrous mini-budget. We believed at the time that these expectations were too high and fixed rates would come down. So in the meantime, we've been taking out variable rate mortgages to maintain flexibility. That's proven correct so far, and fixes have come down in price a lot over the last few weeks. The Bank of England has explicitly said that they believe interest rates will peak at a lower rate than is being priced in. And the markets are less jittery now. The shockwaves of a couple of mad political months have passed. Clearly, we won't see the days of sub 2% mortgages again for a very long time. But personally, we're still holding out for rates to come down further before fixing. That does, of course, open up the risk of being wrong and seeing rates go the other way. You'll need to decide whether you want to take that risk and potentially get a better deal in a couple of months, or lock in a rate that's unattractive but at least gives you certainty.
Okay, and there was one more in our debut Sunday Times column. I don't think we're going to be doing 4 every week, but we are going to be in every week. I think just doing a couple of questions. But we did do 4 this time. Rob, read out the last one.
Yeah, you are being spoiled today. Another Ask Rob and Rob question. This one was on EPC ratings, which again, a lot of you have questions on. I've had an offer to buy a property, but somebody told me that it won't be possible to rent out properties that aren't energy efficient. The EPC rating of this property is D. Should I pull out?
Well, this is currently only a proposal, but there's talk about all rented properties requiring an Energy Performance Certificate, as an EPC, rating of C by 2026. Otherwise, they can't be rented out. There will be some exemptions, and if it's not possible to achieve this rating after spending up to a certain cap, which is thought to be £10,000, you will still be able to rent it legally. To us, it seems unlikely that this will be implemented as proposed, because it allows very little time for what's estimated to be more than 2 million properties to be brought up to standard. However, things are clearly moving in that direction, and some mortgage products are now only available for properties with a C rating or above. For this property, look at the recommendations on the EPC and see if there's anything that can be cost-effectively done to improve the rating. It might be cheap and simple, or it might be impossible, like requiring changes to the communal heating system in a block of flats. If there is an improvement you can make, you could always reduce your offer by deducting the likely cost from the price that you were previously willing to pay, as long as you accept the risk of losing the deal if the vendor refuses. All else being equal, buying properties with a C or above rating is better because you just don't have to worry about this issue. But it is a judgment call. One of us is buying a property with a D rating right now because the deal is good enough to make it worthwhile. But you might feel differently.
So that's it. If you'd like to see your question appear in the Sunday Times, then get your question over to hello@propertyhub.net. But remember, you can also get it on the podcast as well by going to propertyhub.net/ask. And finally, just to say thank you to everybody who's reached out and messaged and said kind words. Our community is amazing, but it really was emphasised after the article went live. So much support, so much kindness. We don't take it for granted. You are awesome. Thank you for your support. We will always, always appreciate it. Next week, we'll be back with a normal Ask Rob and Rob. We just mixed things up this week to celebrate the fact that we kicked off with the Times. So make sure you join us for that episode. And of course, we'll be back on Thursday with a brilliant podcast. This is very timely. You're going to want to listen to it. So make sure you tune in. So until then, take care. Have fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.